First of all, thank you so much for having me here. Today, I'm going to be talking about the complete guide for app developers. The main reason for me to create or to apply to give this talk is because lately we have way more and more tools in the ecosystem. And when I talk with developers, I realize that many of them don't know what we actually have to offer. So let's start. First of all, hi, I'm Guillermo. I'm a computer science and researcher that has been joined here about like 4 years ago. I started as a community contributor and then made my way up to currently leading DevHub, where we focus on documentation, tutorials, examples, and basically giving support to the whole community. Now, when I think about Web3 applications, generally I think about two different worlds, right? One is smart contracts. There are these applications that live in near accounts and they store data, and that basically near accounts have to interact with them, calling methods, storing data on the blockchain, etc. And on the other side, we have the front-end, back-end classic applications, right? That is your everyday Rust, JavaScript, Go, Python. But what happens is that now you want to interact with near, right? And these two things, these two different type of applications are very different, and they actually use different kind of tooling. So for the smart contracts, you're going to be talking about a near SDK, workspaces to test it, near CLI to deploy your smart contracts. Meanwhile, for the front-end and back-end applications, you're going to be talking about near API, near CLI, and community tools. And as I said, these are two different worlds, and therefore these are two different talks. The talk about smart contracts and deployment and building smart contracts and etc. is going to be given tomorrow at 3:30 by Vlad. So it's going to be in the same stage. So I encourage you all to come and see it. And today you are basically here. We're going to be talking about front-end, back-end applications and everything you need in order to create them. So this is going to be like a fairly packed talk, and you're going to be seeing me passing through a lot of information. I will make all the slides available, and please just pay broad attention to what I'm saying, and then luckily we have the documentation that is going to allow you to come back to all of these things. So let's start talking about the CLI. The CLI is basically what you're going to be using when you want to interact with near from a terminal or basically create bash scripts. Now, I don't know if you are all aware, but very recently, we have released a new CLI, which is super friendly and interactive. Allows you to create near accounts, import one if you already have it, check the balances of your account, call smart contracts, send near, and etc. And the nice thing about this CLI is that, first of all, it is interactive. So it will be going and asking you, what are you trying to do right now? And you can choose. OK, it's not passing, but it doesn't matter. And after you end up saying, like, I'm going to be handling an account to send near to this account, et cetera, it's going to tell you what command you need to run next time. So you don't have to go through the whole interactive session. And it will just allow you to create the bash script, right? Like, it's just going to give you the bash line that you need to run. So in this case, I was calling like some function in a smart contract. And I was doing it by inputting parameters. And then it just tell me like, by the way, next time if you need to run this again, just copy paste this line and modify it. So it's very nice. Something else that it can do, which is super useful, is if you find a transaction on the blockchain and you wonder how it was created, it will literally give you the command. You will just paste the transaction. It will tell you what command you need in order to create that transaction and do it again. And another nice way is that it will automatically handle all your keys for you in a secure way. The new CLI, it's allowing you to use passkeys. So you basically are going to be authenticating every action with your fingerprint. So anyway, if you're still using the old one, I will strongly recommend you to migrate. But yeah, I want everyone to know about this because some of the people are still using the previous one. Now, what happens when you want to create a web application that basically allows people to log in and interact with near? Well, if you're starting from scratch, the best idea is to not start from scratch. And instead of that, using some form of template. So one of the main options that we have right now is create near app, which is usually the most up-to-date template to use. It's very simple in the sense that it's just a Next.js template, like the bare bones Next.js template, and we added just the integration with Near with a hello world example. So we didn't try to modify it that much. It only has interaction with Near, and the nice thing that it has is that it already comes with the wallet connections, so the wallet selector, which means that you press a button, and now suddenly you can select between many of the wallets of Near, and your users will be able to log in, and that's it. And the other thing is that this application, and one of the reasons why I recommend it, is that it also implements a wrapper around one of our main libraries. We're going to be talking about it in a while, which is Near API.js, which many people kind of hates, including myself. And so we have a wrapper on top of it, so it's easier to use it. So I would strongly recommend to take a look at least at npx create Near app. Now, something else is that sometimes the hello world is kind of not enough, right? And then we have what we call the canonical examples. So the canonical examples are not so much production ready, but they're a great way, they're like a great educational material. So if you're trying to do something, for sure we have a canonical example that shows exactly how to do it and can help to get you unstuck. For example, we have like another donation example that shows how a user can connect and transfer Near into a smart contract while saving data. We have a coin flip example, which shows you how to handle random numbers on the blockchain. We also have a factory contract that shows you how a contract can deploy other contracts. And something that a lot of people keeps asking, and I keep sending them to exactly the same way, which is a front end that can interact with multiple contracts. Because when you're building applications, this is something that generally you will want to do. Like you will want your front end to talk with 2 or 3 different smart contracts. And I don't know if you were aware, but like right now, for example, in this example, you have the greeting, like the hello smart contract, and you have the guest book, and you can ask people to sign a transaction and sign one transaction for both of them, so people is only redirected once. And you bother the user way less, because then in just one click, they end up hitting 2 smart contracts. So that's important to know that we actually have it, because people keep missing it. But for those that are searching for more production ready, we actually have templates that were contributed by the ecosystem. Huge shout out to Bite, which is one of the main drivers behind this. And we have these templates that, you want to spin up an NFT marketplace, we have a template for that. An NFT minter, we have a template for that. On-chain blog, scaffolding projects made by BuildDAO, we have that. So I would say try to never start a project from scratch. First go and check if we have the template for it, because chances are that we actually do have it. Now, what happens when you already have your application, right? Like I have an application, sorry for the color if it's just burning your eyes, but you have an application, right? And now you want to use Near into it. Well, if it is a web application, one of the first things most probably that you will want to do is to use the wallet selector, because this is like a very simple NPM package that you just add it, and now it allows you to basically connect with every single wallet out there in Near. I think that actually all or almost all of the wallets are implemented, and it's just adding a package and that's it. Now suddenly your application has access to Miner Wallet, Meteor Wallet, Bit Wallet, etc., and even more like all of the new Ethereum's wallet that now are compatible with Near. Now, if you're in any other type of application, you will have to use basically Near API. Near API is the motor behind all of the Near applications. Almost all applications will use a form or like a flavor of Near API under the hood. Because this is basically the library that allows you to interface with the Near RPC. So basically, when you have like any kind of application, no matter if like it's a web app using the wallet selector or like you go through Near CLI, actually everyone is using one form of an API. Either Near API.js, which is the most downloaded and the most hated API that we have right now in the ecosystem, or the near API RS, which is very new. It did not exist until 1 week ago, so please go ahead and check it. It's actually quite amazing. And the Python one for all of you making like AI projects. Now, the near API is kind of super nice because it gives you all the primitives that you need in order to query account information, query blockchain information, read functions, read state from the blockchain, create transactions. But be mindful that if you're not going through a wallet, like if you're just implementing an application using the API, well, you will most probably need to handle the user's keys. But if you're going directly for the API, this is most probably something that you want to do. And something else that is important to say is that when you're building web applications, most probably you're going to be using a mixture of these two, like the wallet selector and the near API. And that when you're building, for example, like non-web application, like backend applications, most probably you're going to be also using like a combination of something of this. So it's not one or the other. It's most like many times you're going to be wanting to use both of them. Now, something that you don't want to do, but you have the option, is that you can actually just talk with the near RPC. If you think about it, like the near APIs that we were talking about are just a very nice abstraction on top of the near RPC, because the near RPC is the one that is the gateway towards near. All of this is a nice way, a nice packet library so you can talk with the near RPC. But what happens if you're building in Go and you just don't have that near API Go? Well, then you will have to talk with the near RPC. It's still possible. It's just like a very simple endpoint that talks mostly in encoded bytes. It's kind of annoying sometimes to create those because you will create a transaction object, encode it in Borg, sign it with something, and then encode it with SHA-256. But it's not impossible. I have done it. So it's good to know that if you're building something and you don't find an API, well, most probably you will be able to talk with the RPC directly. But if there is an API, please just use it. It's going to be so much simpler. Now, something that I want to talk about, and actually the whole reason why I ended up deciding to make this talk was about this section. It's about like ecosystem APIs, which are like the simplest way to monitor chain activity. And I think that it's important like to introduce this topic, like at least with one slide. Like, it's very common when you're building an application that you will want to do something more than just connect and talk with a smart contract directly, right? Like, and say like, okay, store data, give me some information, store data, give me some information. Many times you want to track user actions on the chain because that's relevant for your application. And such information is not available in the RPC, and therefore it's not available through like the near APIs. So if you want to know, who interacted with my contract, and what methods do they call, and what parameters did they use? Did the transaction succeed, or like, even if you want to just say like, hey, give me all the NFTs of my user just connected. I want to know all their assets. This is not something that the near API will give you. And again, this is something that's very common and that I hit when we were building the example of a bidding application where people can just come and like bid on a specific product. And now you want to know the past bids. Like, how do you do it without storing them on chain? Because storing on chain, if you're going to be storing 300 bids, can get like very expensive. So there are 3 APIs that I'm going to be talking about. Like the first one is like the near blocks API, which is actually great to keep track of actions on a contract. You can just hit a simple endpoint, like B1 account, then the near account transactions from someone and what method. And basically here what we're doing is like, give me all the calls to create token that gagds.near made on token primitives.near, and you just get this very nice like response in a JSON, right? So this is super useful, and this is something actually that we were using on one of our applications to know like how many people created a fungible token on one of our apps. You also have FastNear API, shout out to FastNear right there, and which is actually amazing to gather data on users, and we are also using it in one of our applications. So for example, you can hit an endpoint and say like, okay, gagds.near/full, and suddenly you get all the assets, NFTs, FTs, near tokens from a single account. And if you have to think like, what's the other way to do this? It's like, you should know which NFTs the user has, or at least which contracts they have interacted with, and then go and ask if, like what are the NFT for those users. This simplifies your life so much more, so just, much better. And then you have PySpeak API, which is a complete API to query information such as like transaction history, current gas price, balances, etc. Now, to be honest, like if you ever want to, track information of your application and your users, those APIs are going to get you like 90% of the time there. If they don't cover your case, then sadly enough, you will need to build what we call your own indexer. And an indexer is just like a simple service that you're going to be running that is going to be literally constantly listening to the blockchain blocks and being like, okay, what transactions are here? Okay, these are all the transactions. Is any of this interesting for me? Okay, perfect. Now I have to store it somewhere or do something about it. But to be honest, if you can avoid it, just avoid it. Like the APIs have become so much better that like it's just better to use them. And if you have to build an indexer, well, I'm sorry. It's possible, but like I'd rather stay away from it. And now, one last thing that I want to talk about is like ecosystem tools in general, which are tools and resources from and made by developers, which, like with the ecosystem growing, sometimes we kind of lose track of what is there out there and not. So one of the first things I want to talk about is like, in order to keep track of those, like it's very nice to actually go to Near Catalog, which was created by BuildDAO, so huge shout out to BuildDAO. And it's an amazing product. It's an amazing place to discover all of the projects that are right now in Near, and it keeps growing. Like we have 500 and it keeps going on. I use it many times in order to discover, what's new, and like if I need something, I first always go and check if something already exists, so I don't have to reinvent the wheel. Now, in terms of like tools of the ecosystem that are very useful, one that I want to, like Explorers is a whole category, and PySpeak is an explorer, and NearBlocks is another explorer. But I want to talk particularly about NearBlocks because besides allowing you to like just explore accounts, transactions, it also allows you now to look at contract metadata. And this is actually super interesting and very useful, and I use it a lot. And the other day I discovered that it's not so common that people know that this exists. So if you will go to right now, NearBlocks.io, and go and check Hello Near, you can go into the tab of contracts and contract methods and see that my contract has like get greeting and set greeting. And if you go into an NFT contract, you can actually go and see all of the methods of that NFT contract. So it's honestly super useful because generally you will just see a contract and like have to figure out what is happening. Here you will have the information. And many other times you will be able to see if the contract was compiled in a specific way, you will be able to see like where the GitHub code of that specific contract lies and a lot of information from the contract. So very useful. Hope you're paying attention. This is going to become very useful for you as developers. Now, another amazing thing, and I'm saying amazing because I built it, right, is docs.near.org. No, I did not build it, but I contribute a lot to it. And it's basically the best place to learn about all of this. If you were looking at the slides, you might have noticed that on top of every single title, I also included like the direction where you can enter in docs. Because everything that I just said, everything right now is in docs.near.org. So I will encourage you to go and check it. We have there the documentations, the tutorials, the templates, the explanation of how to use the CLIs, the APIs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, something else that we have been working, and we recently released a new version, is the Dev Portal, which is a one-stop shop for all the developers. And we really want to make this portal in such a way that you want to be onboarded on Near and you want to discover something on Near, you will find it here. So you will be able to, and right now you can already like find resources on how to get started. It has links to the docs, it has links to the Near catalog and everything. It shows you where to get support and where to find relevant apps and tools. And talking about tools, something that we have done is that right now the Dev Portal has a whole section about tools. And if you go there, you can mint fungible tokens, mint NFTs, create link drops, everything from like one single place. So these are just like one-click solutions for the most common cases, and it's constantly growing. So soon we will add more methods to handle DAOs and relayers. And more importantly is that all of these tools are using actually community tools because we didn't want to reinvent the wheel. And we also give links to those tools, to those projects, so you know, like, if you need anything, you can find it. Finally, always remember you're not alone on this journey. We have an amazing community that is more than willing to support you. Many of us are there. So join our Telegram and, you know, just join us and start building together. And by the way, be on the Outlook because the community spaces on dev.near.org is going to land soon. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your conference.